In the world of entertainment, it's pretty strange to hear of a video game causing such an uproar that it forces a lawsuit. Well, it's happened a lot more times than you may think it has. Welcome to Trending 10, and today we're counting down the top 10 biggest lawsuits involving video games. Ready? Here we go. Number 10. Nintendo vs. Tengen. Ever notice that little official Nintendo seal of quality sticker on old NES and N64 cartridges? Well, this is the case that started that tradition. Back during the days of the Nintendo Entertainment System, Nintendo was very strict about third-party developers releasing games on their console, and created that seal of quality sticker to identify the games that were officially approved by the company. Well, in 1987, Tengen, previously a part of Atari, tried to negotiate a less strict third-party policy with Nintendo, to which Nintendo did not agree. Rather than continue to negotiate, Tengen decided to reverse engineer and bypass Nintendo's policies so they could sell as many NES games as they wanted without Nintendo's knowledge. Once Nintendo did find out about it though, well, they brought the hammer down fast. Nintendo sued Tengen for copyright and patent infringement and won the case quite easily. Number 9. Universal vs. Nintendo. Everyone remembers the original Donkey Kong. It was this fun arcade classic that featured a plumber racing to rescue the damsel in distress from a massive ape. While these characters would go on to become household names in the gaming world, apparently Universal Studios thought the game was a little bit too similar to the movie King Kong and decided to sue Nintendo over it. Universal ended up losing the suit and paying Nintendo over $2 million in damages. That's a shock that this case even lasted as long as it did, as Universal didn't even own the rights to King Kong at the time. Number 8. Brown vs. Entertainment Merchants Association. When video games first became a major form of entertainment, there was a lot of controversy over how old consumers had to be to purchase them, and there's still quite a bit of discussion over that topic today. Some even felt so strongly about it that they believed that it should be illegal to sell M-rated video games to anyone under the age of 17. Basically turning the government into a babysitter for your pastime, as this no longer gave parents the decision of whether or not they could allow their kids to buy certain games. Now, this case was of course shot down by the Supreme Court, and video games were to be given the same sales protections as books and movies. Number 7. PacMan vs. KC Munchkin. Ever since the beginning of video games, there have been copycats. One of the earliest examples of this was way back in the 1980s when PacMan was still dominating the arcades and Philips Electronics released their game KC Munchkin, which was, in basically every way, shape, and form, almost identical to PacMan. Namco and Midway developers were outraged by this and successfully sued Philips just in time for the home console release of PacMan for the Atari 2600. Ironically, this console port of the arcade game would go down as one of the worst arcade ports in history. Number 6. Nintendo vs. Blockbuster. Bet you haven't heard that name in a while. Blockbuster has since gone out of business, but it used to be the go-to place for both movies and video game rentals. Well, when video game rentals first became a thing, it really scared a lot of gaming companies, as they were afraid that rentals would overall hurt their sales. It even scared Nintendo enough that they banned game rentals in Japan and tried to do the same in America by attacking Blockbuster. Now, they lost this case ultimately, and Blockbuster was free to rent out Nintendo games. But unfortunately, Nintendo did end up on top, as Nintendo is still going strong, while Blockbuster has been dead for years. Number 5. Nintendo vs. Bert. We're hearing a lot about Nintendo today, aren't we? Well, back in 2009, an Australian man named James Burt managed to get his hands on a copy of New Super Mario Bros. Wii almost a full week before its release. Now, it's unclear how exactly he managed to get the game, but what is clear is that he uploaded the files online and ended up giving over 50,000 people the game for free before it even came out. Once Nintendo heard about this, they sprung into action and sued Burt for violation of copyright and ultimately won, forcing Burt to pay the company $1.5 million to make up for all the free copies he gave out and an additional $100,000 to cover Nintendo's legal fees. Now, if you ever get a game early, do not, and I repeat, do not put it online. Number 4. Wilson vs. Midway Games. One of the biggest controversies in gaming is whether or not violent video games cause violent actions in those who play them. Well, back in the 90s, Mortal Kombat was definitely stirring the pot with its graphic violence and brutal fatalities. In 1997, a 13-year-old boy named Noah Wilson was stabbed to death by his friend, who was an avid Mortal Kombat player. Noah's mother sued Midway Games, claiming that the game had driven the young boy crazy and caused him to kill her son. Now, the court ultimately sided with Midway Games on this, as making video games was protected under the First Amendment right to free speech and expression. Number 3. Silicon Knights vs. Epic Games. Now, this case is a perfect example of a studio just being a poor sport. In 2005, Epic Games created an engine we all know today as Unreal 3, and it would end up powering some of the biggest games of all time. Well, Studio Silicon Knights bought the rights to use Epic's new engine to develop their new game titled Too Human. However, after Epic showed off their new game Gears of War at E3 2007, Silicon Knights panicked and accused Epic of working too much on their new game instead of the Unreal Engine. Silicon Knights even went as far as to say that Epic Games had breached their contract and that the Unreal Engine given to them had been unusable, and that Epic Games had been creating the Gears of War game with funds that should have been going towards creating a better gaming engine. According to Silicon Knights, they even had to create their own engine to develop Too Human on because of Epic's faulty game engine. However, upon investigation, it was discovered that Too Human had indeed been developed with a slightly altered copy of Epic's engine after all, meaning that not only had Silicon Knights been lying about Epic breaching their contract, but they were now also infringing on copyrighted material, causing them to not only lose the case, but also have to pay Epic Games $9 million in damage and destroy all copies of games that Silicon Knights had developed using the stolen engine. Basically, Gears of War made a much better impression at E3 than Too Human did, so Silicon Knights panicked and tried to sue Epic Games in order to wipe out their competition. Whew, and it backfired big time. Now that is being a poor sport. Number 2. College Athletes vs. EA. Two of EA's biggest properties are their Madden series and their NCAA football series, which are very similar in format. However, a key difference between the two football games is that in the NCAA, EA was not allowed to use the likeness of any of the college's players, as none of the players had signed any contracts allowing this. Now, despite not having the permissions, the NCAA football series went on for years and years using the likeness of current players, and eventually the players got sick of it. A group of players came together and attacked EA for profiting off of their likeness without permission. EA responded by saying that they were doing nothing wrong, as the players in the game did not represent the real players. However, this response was quickly shot down by a lengthy statement from the players that listed all of the likenesses blatantly stolen in recent NCAA football and basketball games. This statement shut EA down once and for all and won the players over $40 million. And finally, in our number 1 spot, Infinity Ward vs. Activision. One of the biggest games of all time is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Released in 2009, this game had quite a bit of behind-the-scenes drama going along with it. Modern Warfare 2 was developed by Infinity Ward and published by Activision, but after the massive success that it was reported that Infinity Ward was not receiving royalties from the sales. Now, this caused Infinity Ward founders Jason West and Vince Zampella a great amount of frustration. Soon after, Activision terminated West and Zampella's employment due to meeting with other video game companies, likely due to Activision's mistreatment of them, as this breached their non-compete contract. West and Zampella filed a countersuit demanding to be compensated for their work that went unpaid and to secure their ownership of the Modern Warfare series. After many reschedulings, the case reached a confidential closing, but not before many Infinity Ward workers got fed up with Activision's treatment as well. In April 2010, 38 Infinity Ward employees filed suit against Activision demanding between $75 and $125 million in compensation for work that they had done during the development of Modern Warfare 2 and were not paid for. Activision ended up paying the group $42 million, which the group was not happy with, and many of them resigned to join West and Zampella's new development studio, Respawn Entertainment, which would go on to create the revolutionary Titanfall series. But alright guys, there we go. That's it for our list of 10 of the biggest video game lawsuits in history. Did you enjoy this history lesson? Do you know of any other big gaming lawsuits? Be sure to let us know down in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, drop a like and subscribe for more great content. But alright, that's going to be it for this one guys. Thanks so much for watching Trending 10, your guide to what's viral right now.